There are two types of death and renewal energy that takes place in the springtime, and knowing which pathway you're on is going to save you a lot of trouble. You'll spare the emotional, mental, spiritual distress and anguish because you know which transformation path you're on, and you're just going to be better prepared going forward. Now, the other day when we were talking about springtime and the transition from wintertime to spring, it already has kind of this like life energy associated with it. You know, the rebirthing, the renewal, the reawakening, the refresh, the spring cleaning, the motivation, the sensuality, the ideas, the creativity. It's all very like, it's like big external kind of energy. But we can't talk about birth and rebirth if we can't talk about death, because it's all that cyclical cycle. Now, death and rebirth actually has two pathways. And to tell this story, I want to talk to you about the butterfly and the snake. You know, anytime we talk about transformation or personal transformation, we often talk about the butterfly because it's the story about this little very hungry caterpillar who ate its way, and then it became this character, and then it became this butterfly at the end of the story. And all it is this transformation journey. And it's a very common transformation journey and a common analogy that a lot of people say, that like, I used to be the, you know, the ugly duckling and then I became this, or I used to do this and then all of a sudden there's this like metamorphosis energy. Okay. And so the thing that sometimes you miss about this metamorphosis is that there's an actual death that takes place in order for this little creature, this little larva who transforms its way through all these different versions of itself. There's a different character that appears at every stage of this story. So you're not a larva the whole way through the story. You're not a caterpillar the whole way through the story. You're not, right? You're not all the same the character changes all the way throughout the story until you become this butterfly. So this pathway of transformation is really talking about the fact that sometimes we actually emerge as a brand new person, you know, and there is this death that takes place in terms of literally this caterpillar, when it becomes a cocoon, it has to emulsify and liquefy itself. It becomes a goo in order for it to eventually emerge as a butterfly, right? It's not just like, oh, like one day I just became it. Like there was this very painful liquefying process that at the end makes you something incredibly beautiful. Now, this process, this death process, is often really challenging, and sometimes we actually experience this during the winter time. And of course, anytime you're experiencing any traumatizing thing in your life or a transition in your life, which can take place anytime outside of winter, obviously. But this winter time is essentially this like cocooning. You're very insular, and so a lot of people are literally liquefying inside. I mean, part of it is like we don't have enough chemicals for, you know, our hormones, our dopamine, our serotonin. We don't have enough sunlight and vitamin D. Part of it's that, but that insular energy is like this inner death that takes place in this winter time, that as you're coming into spring feels like this liberation. It feels like, yes, I can finally exhale. I can let my wings out. I can finally fly. I can finally see the world is very different. And now I all of a sudden have wings that I need to figure out how to use. And I have this, you know, these, what are they called? Like antlers, antennas that I'm using to eat with and to smell with and to feel with. And as a caterpillar, I didn't have these things. I'm learning how to exist in this new body because I'm a totally new character now. Right? So one of the types of transformations, and I said there's two, right? So one of the types is this butterfly pathway where you're literally changing into a new character. You're not going to emerge as the same version of you. You're not going to emerge as the same visible version of you or the same character. There's an absolute different character at each phase of this metamorphosis, right? And oftentimes this is not something that happens to you every week. This is not something that you're going through every year. This is a cycle. Maybe there's like a 2-3 year cycle where it's like, okay, I'm out and then I'm going back in, and now I'm out and I'm going back in, I'm out. And this inward process is not just like, oh, I'm just spending time with myself and I'm like doing bubble baths and like doing my inner work and it's like chill and whatever. It actually sucks, you know, to liquefy your entire body and become a goo. It hurts, it's painful, and it's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to emerge out of this. Like, how do I trust that once I gooify, right? Like that there's something on the other side. Like I don't actually know if there's something on the other side. So that process requires you to have so much trust and so much belief in self, that knowing that this process is allowing you to create the next version, the next iteration, the next, you know, metamorphosized version of you that's going to emerge at a later state. But of course, it doesn't feel like that while you're being a goo, you know, like while you're just like, I'm literally like liquefying. I feel like death. I feel like, you know, there's nothing on the other side of this. I feel like I can't even see because I'm literally inside a cocoon over here. Like I literally can't see what's out here. You have to trust the process, that there's something that is emerging, and every part of your energetic body like literally actually needs to die. Your thoughts start to change because you're like, I'm breaking up with the system, I'm breaking up with these habits, I'm breaking up with these boundaries, I'm breaking up with these people, I'm breaking up with these circumstances, it's like a whole grieving process that takes place and a breakup process that takes place, because like you're not actually dying, but you kind of are. Energetically, there's this death that takes place that's like insular, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, you know, like that was worth it, right? Like that was worth it, but I didn't know if I was gonna make it through, and I don't know if I would do it again, but like you will in another cycle, you will go through again. Okay, so that's the butterfly pathway, meaning that there's different characters that show up. So every time you're just learning more about yourself, and you're just like, I'm not who I was 3 months ago. And the timeline is different. You know, the butterfly metamorphosis is not like a 6-month process, but for you, it might be a 6-month process. It might be 2-year process. So you might have felt that like there's been this slow change where you're this version and now you're this other version. And then all of a sudden you're going through this like intense, emotional, spiritual death. And then you reborn, right? And then you're going to go through it again in a couple, but like, let's not confuse us right now. Then the second pathway of this death and renewal transformation is the snake, who doesn't die every time it sheds its skin, right? So the shedding process is uncomfortable, it's long, it's painful, it hurts the physical body, their nerves, there's pain associated with it. And when you're shedding, you're not like socializing, you're not doing a lot, you're not looking for food, you're not looking to hunt, you're not looking to do all these things. The whole process is about allowing the shedding process to take place, right? And the shedding is not creating a new snake essentially, or a new character. Like the snake doesn't become a butterfly, the snake doesn't become a caterpillar, the snake doesn't become a tiger, the snake remains a snake, right? The caterpillar becomes a butterfly. So a character changes. There's many different versions and faces of this caterpillar that goes through all these processes to become this like final result. But for a snake, it's not the same. The snake is saying, I am still the snake, but I'm just a renewed version of the snake. I'm a revived version. I'm in the next chapter. I'm in the next presentation. I'm bigger and bolder. I'm different. My skin is fresh, but that shedding season is not as dramatic as this like energetic death as we described with the butterfly, right? The butterfly like literally has to emulsify, the word when you liquefy into a goo. And I don't know if you know this, but like in the cocoon, there's no creature. If you look, there's goo, there's literal goo in there. So there's still a spirit and still a soul, but like the physical body is gone. You've left your form in order to become a different form. But for the snake, this process is so different. And as you're shedding, as you're leaving the past, you're allowing yourself to come into this next version of yourself instead of a new character that is emerging in a different body, in a different form. So let me know which one you resonate with. Are you the butterfly who's going through this metamorphosis and this spiritual, energetic death inside, and you feel like it's so dark, I don't even know what's on the other side of this? Or are you in the snake transformation pathway where you are shedding, but it's just a new chapter of you that's emerging? You're still the same, very much everything looks kind of the same, but there's something energetically different as you shed the past, you shed the layers, and you've emerged into this new version of you. So let me know in the comments, are you the butterfly? Are you the snake? And if you're not already subscribed, definitely subscribe. And remember, the world is your playground. And until next time, I will catch you soon.